Hi. In this lesson, we're going to look at the concept of line, from simple to complex. So the first question we need to ask is, what is a line? In geometry, a line is defined as an endless series of dots, or the path of a moving dot. In drawing, a line is any mark created by moving a tool across some surface. So, for example, a pencil dragging across the surface of a paper, or your foot dragging through the surface of the sand. A line is considered one-dimensional. It's the amount of space an object takes up in one direction. Typically, a line is considered one-dimensional. It would represent either length, width, or height. Usually, we refer to it as length. Now, in art, a line does have some width as well as length. But as long as the width is smaller in comparison, we would still consider it a line. So you can have very wide lines. Now, as these dots move in space and we connect them to create a line, we can start using more lines to start giving the impression of a plane, two-dimensional surface. And if we angle them just right, we can start to create the illusion of three dimensions. When we draw a ball using a line to represent the outside edge, we would call that an outline. Lines that go around a shape are called outlines, and outlines create two-dimensional shapes. Now, some lines that we perceive don't actually exist. When we look at a three-dimensional object, we would call that not a shape, but a form. And when we look at forms and we look at those outside edges, we perceive those to be lines. These lines don't actually exist on the object, but that's the way our brain interprets the outside edge, as a simple outline. Outlines alone can be rather misleading. What is this? Oh yeah, it's a circle, but what does it represent? Could it be a finger? See, the outline alone can be misleading. There's not enough information. But we can use lines to do more than just define the outside edge. We can start to use lines to imply or create the illusion of a three-dimensional form. Now, lines within the shape, the lines that define the surface of this form, would be called contour lines. And these contour lines can be rather simple, or they can be extremely complex. So as I said, outlines alone can be rather misleading. It doesn't give you enough information. But when we start to add the contour lines, we can start to see the three-dimensional form. And it's these contour lines that help us understand how the shadows would appear on this form. So in drawing, let's start to consider what the contour lines would look like on an object. I'm actually going to draw the contour lines on this banana to help you visualize it. I'll draw these lines going around its form. I'll try to space these lines evenly. I'll draw some lines down the edges of the banana also. So now let's look at this banana from different points of view. Notice as the banana moves away from us in this direction, the contour lines appear to be curving upward. But when we change our point of view and have the banana appear to be coming towards us, the contour lines are now curving downward. Also notice that as the banana gets farther and farther away, those contour lines that were evenly separated are now appearing to get closer and closer together. So let's set this banana aside, and I'll leave the contour lines on it so that you can see what it is that I'm drawing. I'll start with a simple outline. Now, based on this view of the banana, the contour lines are mostly curving upward. It's important to consider the degree of curve when you're drawing them. How much do they curve and where do they curve? If you draw the contours curving in the wrong direction, it will make the object look bent or broken. Your job as the artist is to see how these contour lines curve across the surface of the object. I've drawn some contour lines on my hand so you can see how they curve around the fingers, the thumb, the palm. As my hand changes positions, notice how it changes the degree of curve and the direction of curve in these contour lines. Fingers that were pointed upward are now bent. The contour lines are going in a different direction. When you draw, you want to be able to see these contour lines where they don't actually exist. You want to be able to understand the curve around the surface of a form. Can you still see the contours in this hand? Can you still see the contours in this hand? Would you be able to draw those hands without actually seeing the contour lines drawn on them? Those contour lines are implied. They don't actually exist, but we can still see them. In this circle, the line is broken, but we still understand it represents the outside edge of the circle. Sometimes it doesn't actually have to even be a surface or an edge. Sometimes an implied line can just be an indication. A finger pointing at object gives the impression that a line exists. Now, of all of these lines, outlines and contour lines, we create all of them from 4 basic types. There's vertical, horizontal, diagonal, and curved. From these 4 basic types of lines, we can have multiple variations. Each one can have a degree of angle, a degree of curve. Each one can be smooth or jagged, long or short, thick or thin. Artists have used lines to control the movement and lead your eyes through visual imagery. We see lines everywhere, and lines are used to draw pictures that represent the world around us. So in review, a line is a series of points, an area whose length is greater than its width, an indication of direction, and apparent movement. A line is a point moved or moving through space, and this applies to drawing, painting, printmaking, sculpture, clay, pottery, architecture, nature. Now, the characteristics of a line can be actual or implied. A line which defines the outside edge of an object is called an outline, and a line that defines the surface of a three-dimensional form is a contour line. Lines can be interpreted as having some expressive qualities too. They can give the impression of strength and stability, nobility, formality, movement. Please review the project outlines in Schoology, and I hope you learned something. Thank you.